Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Keelin McNamara, and I am back again for MMA Island. And today I have a very special episode to bring you with an interview, of course. It's with one of my favorite fighters right now. He fights out of Memphis, Tennessee. He's one of the best bantamweights coming out of Tennessee right now. And his name is Dre, the OneEyed Dragon Miley. Dre, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm glad that we finally got to talk. I didn't get the chance to really talk to you guys when I was in South Carolina a couple weeks ago. So this is nice.
Absolutely. And Kris speaks very, very highly of you. So I'm very grateful that you were able to make the time to talk to us today. We really do appreciate it.
Well, of course, man. I like doing the interviews. It helps me talk and connect with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really does help us out as well. So we do appreciate it in that regard for sure. My first question for you, Dre, is obviously talking about your background and how you sort of initially developed coming into fighting almost. And obviously, whenever I was doing my research for this interview, your background is extremely interesting compared to a lot of people because your father, Floyd, was a very famous cornerback for the University of Tennessee. And he was involved in one of the best college games that basically in college football history, the Miracle at South Bend. Of course, that's when the University of Tennessee beat Notre Dame in Indiana. The reason I bring that up is I was sort of wondering from my end, was there ever an interest to play football in your end as opposed to fighting? Was that a passion that you ever thought of perhaps delving into whenever you were younger?
Actually, I did play football growing up. I
Really?
played a lot of sports growing up. Football was one of those like I played a lot in because like growing up where I did, I don't know, like for the first half of my life, I grew up in Texas, and Texas is known for a football state. So we play football all the time. And then, when I moved up back up here, finding out that my dad was this, stud of an athlete at UT and he had this thing going for him and me playing for football, it seemed good, but at the same time, like I liked it, but I did not like it. My thing is I don't like living in someone else's shadow. And it felt like I was living in a shadow because whenever I was playing, because I played offense. I played running back for my high school, and I still have records that set out in my high school today. You know, and whenever they found out that my dad was the one that played UT, they did like a whole news story on both of us. It was cool to draw parallels like that. Me and him joke about it a lot, saying if we had played against each other, who would get more of the successes? And I was like, you wouldn't be able to stop me. Like we were competitive. Me and my dad are like super competitive. But yeah, and then after, I played football for a little bit and I lost my eye in a car wreck when I was about 17 years old, and colleges backed off because they was like, he's not going to be the same kid that he was. It's a hard thing to come back from. And being running back, you have to have vision. You have to have eyes all over your head. So they backed off, and then I went to depression. And thank God that I have, my family around me that was like, you need to get up, you need to go do something, and you need to go find something besides football because football's not going to be there anymore. I was like, after months and months of them convincing me to get up, I finally got up. I ended up fighting UFC on TV. It was Rampage versus Vanderlei, and I was watching it, and I was like, he's from Tennessee. It's holy crap. And then I was like, all right, and I started Googling it, and then sure enough, uh, I was like, all right, fine, I'll find this place out. And then I started doing research on that on the gym that I'm at now, and I ended up finding out that Vince was, at that gym, and he just fought in Knoxville. I was like, why am I just not hearing about this? So Vince and Rampage are kind of like the two people that like caused me to go and find out this place. And then 12 years later, I'm at the gym I'm at now and 13 pro fights in. So this is pretty cool. It's pretty nice to look back on.
It definitely is, yeah, and it's such an amazing story for a lot of the reasons that you have just mentioned. My next question is in relation to that, and I suppose it's sort of something you've already alluded to, but something I'm curious about. You've mentioned obviously the terrible accident that you unfortunately suffered when you were 17 and you lost your left eye very sadly. But one thing I find very interesting, especially, it's a real testament to your character, I feel, more than anything. You find an incredibly tough path in combat sports, especially mixed martial arts, after suffering such what many would consider to be a debilitating injury. Of course, many people go into it before whenever they're just as they are, and then they tend to suffer injuries as opposed to finding that path afterwards. Do you feel as if that almost there was some sort of like higher reason for that? Do you believe there was some sort of higher purpose for you finding mixed martial arts after you suffered the ordeal that you did?
Uh, I do. I feel like everybody's designed to do something. I feel like my body and the way the way I am, like I've never been one to let myself get down too bad. Never been one to be told you can't do something because of this. So I feel like it was a calling to fight, but it didn't dawn on me until like having a conversation with my head coach Eric Turner. He is just a wizard at everything. He's the smartest man alive. I still think he is. Like he may not say it, but I believe he is. And like he really hit home because he's all about overcoming, adversity. He's always saying life is hard, it's raining on both sides of the fence, but what are you going to do about it? So with him, he really helped me overcome my whole like eyes problem, and like you could be really good at this, and he gave me things to work on. He's continued to give me things to work on every day along with Vince. So I feel like it was a calling. I feel like I'm supposed to be at Knoxville Martial Arts Academy, and I feel like everybody that's around me is supposed to be around me. I feel like I'm supposed to be coached and mentored by Eric, so everything seems to happen perfectly for this reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out Knoxville Martial Arts Academy. By the way, Coach Turner does amazing work there. Everybody do go and check it out if you haven't already. I've heard they're an amazing gym in that area. If you're ever interested, please do go and have a look at them because as Dre has just said, they are brilliant at what they do. So my next question, Dre, is and it's on the subject of your eye, but for a far more positive reason. For my money, you have got undebatably undisputed the best nickname for any fighter in the mixed martial arts world right now. Of course, your nickname is the One-Eyed Dragon. Now, I know a bit of the context behind it, but would you like to explain to our audience what the reason behind that was and how you came to that nickname?
Yeah, well, I was originally going by like the whole Draku thing, the whole Dragon Ball Z, but that wasn't really clicking with anybody because if you don't watch anime, you don't know what I'm talking about. And if you do watch anime, you are kind of afraid to say that you watch anime. It's kind of a weird thing. But like the One-Eyed Dragon thing was born because we were backstage at Valor Fights, and Coach Eric was sitting there talking with me and Jason King, and we were just talking, and he asked me just randomly, like, "Do you know anything about the Japanese history?" I was like, I know a little bit. Like I knew like of samurais, I knew of ninjas and stuff like that. And he was like telling me about in the Sengoku era where like whole Japan was like in like civil war with each other, and these samurais were just going through just destroying each other. He told me about this one samurai named Date Masamune, and he had lost his eye when he was 15, and he lost it through smallpox, and pretty much like the badass that dude is, one of his people was like, "Hey, you might want to do something with your eye, because if people see it, they're going to try to exploit that as a weakness." But he took that and he took his own sword and cut his eye out, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So like he wears an eye patch and like his armor is black and gold. And like, when he's coming to destroy stuff. So he was known as the One-Eyed Dragon himself, because he would just go through, and he was a brilliant tactician, brilliant, fighter, stuff like that. He was just so brutal about everything. The best story ever is like his dad got captured, and he was like kind of hesitant about trying to save his dad, and his dad was like, "I don't care what you got to do. If you got to kill me, kill them." And like he went to try to go save his dad, and then the other samurai that had him was like, we're gonna kill him. And like he made it across the river and he cut his dad's head off, and then dude was like, kill everybody, kill every single person part of their clan, don't leave no survivors. And he did. They killed every single person. I was like, that is probably the baddest thing I've ever heard in my life. So he has more stories, and it just seemed to correlate really well because the Bushido Code is something that like I didn't know I follow, but I embody it. So it seemed like a perfect fit. And with Eric being again the master wizard that he is, he saw it and then he was like, "You should do this." So I was like, "All right, let's do it."
That's a fantastic story. And of course, for those who don't know, um, Date Masamune was one of the three great unifiers of ancient Japan, as well as Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Obviously, a big supporter of Tokugawa Ieyasu back in the day. It's an amazing history. Basically, if you haven't read it, as Dre and I have both said, you really should check it out if you don't, because there is great stuff there. And I love the point that you make about the Bushido Code, because I think that almost links into what you said about finding a higher purpose for finding mixed martial arts after your injury. The fact that you were living the Bushido Code so subconsciously perhaps almost feeds into that. And perhaps you were following the path before you even knew it was meant for you.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. And it didn't dawn on me till like one of my teammates had said something. It was like, "Hey, do you know that you're doing this?" I'm like, "I did not know that." 'Cause I've always been known of helping out my teammates, whatever they need, I try to do my best I can. So like if I don't know, if someone has a fight and I have to emulate that style, I'll be that style. If I have to hoop and holler at my teammates, and I'll do that. If I have to do, you name it, I'm gonna do it for my teammates. If I have to be 110-pound girl, to roll around with, some of the fires that we have so that way they get good look, and I'll do that. So, and, I'm always trying to be as honest as I can and trying to be as blunt as I can. And then just trying to always look out for my team's best interest. So that's ultimately what all it boils down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great reasoning there, unquestionably. My next question is, you in your first 12 professional mixed martial arts fights with Valor, you garnered an incredibly impressive record of 8-4. How did you find the transition to the professional ranks of mixed martial arts? How was that for you?
Well, I was fighting everywhere because the Tennessee Athletic Commission was like totally against me fighting. They was like, it is scientifically impossible for you to fight. That doesn't make sense. It's like I can drive a car, I can go to work, I can do all this, but I can't fight. So you guys are idiots. So, you know, they eventually let go, and then I eventually got my license and got the fight as a pro. So I mean, the transition was fine because again, excuse me, I was fighting in states where you could throw knees and you could throw elbows. Like I was fighting in Virginia, that was, at the time, unsanctioned state. So you could do whatever you wanted to do in Virginia. So I mean, I was already exposed to it, and I've already trained with pro athletes as it was. I was already training to be a pro athlete because I never saw myself as an amateur. I always saw myself as a pro athlete. So it seemed to transition very well. And Valor's just been, just a great promotion that helped me get more fights and, more of a push, more in the public's eye, so to speak.
So, would you say holding the mindset of a professional fighter is what helped you best with the transition? Like, sort of holding yourself to a professional standard, even whilst making that initial step?
Yeah, because everybody wants to fight, but the problem is people don't want to do the stuff that makes you a fighter. People don't want to do the weight cuts. They don't want to do the blood work. They don't want to do the paperwork. They don't want to do the stuff outside of fighting. So with me, I know how to fight. I have to hit every single point professionally. And so if I lose, then it's ultimately on me. That's how a professional should be handling his stuff. Say, well, I lost because of this, not because my teammate didn't give me a good look or I didn't sleep well that night, whatever the excuse you can name it. It's just basically, hey, I screwed up. So like my mindset is everything has to be professionally done. You make weight, we're big on that at the gym. We make weight no matter what. You could die, someone's gonna pick you up and carry you to the to the weigh-ins. That way you still have a little bit of energy to pick yourself up. So, I mean, and also I don't really cut too much as it is. My body is staying in fight ready form at all times. So if I get a call, I'm like, okay, I just got to drop weight super fast, and I can drop weight really fast. So yeah, that's the whole mindset of being professional is what drives it and what helps it.
I respect that for sure. I certainly think the best do have that mindset, and surely only having that mindset can bode for much bigger and better things already as it is. So that's a great answer. Very recently, in fact, I actually think it was July 30th, if I'm not mistaken, you made your XMMA debut, and unfortunately, you did come up just short. Do you feel as though you learned a lot from that fight? Because I remember watching it, and I certainly remember thinking, especially in the first round, you definitely had your moments in that fight. Do you find that you learned a lot from that fight and that you take almost as much from the losses as you do from the wins?
I think I take a lot from my losses more than I do my wins, because when you win, you really don't go back and think. Most people don't want to go back and think like, oh crap, what did I do wrong, or what could I do better? You won, so therefore you think everything that you did is golden, so that you keep riding that wave. When I lose, I try to think back. Okay, what did I did wrong? What I need to work on? And in this last fight, it wasn't nothing. I could make 1,001 excuses. Oh, the ref called it too soon. Blah blah blah. You name it, I could say it. But ultimately, it's like I took it away. It's like he beat me to the punch. That's exactly what it was. He caught me like right on the right at the punch. He did exactly what he wanted to do. I know that there was an interview that he did, and he told the interviewer, it was like, how are you going to finish this fight? He's like, I have to go fast. I have to beat him first. I have to go, beat him to the punch, be in his face. Because if it goes any longer, then I'm in trouble. It's like, yeah, that's right. Because I will get you there. So I think that was what I took away from that fight. Is like, I have to be first. Like I cannot wait. That's what I was waiting on. My last few fights, I didn't wait. I moved around, I threw punches. This last fight, I didn't really do too much. I was more of like, let's see what he does. I was like, that's really not me. So
That
I
is
would take that.
No, absolutely. I was just going to say that is for me, whenever I obviously watch your fights, that to me is the common theme that runs through all of your wins. Explosively getting in and out of the space really quickly and being first to the punch. So that definitely does make a lot of sense. And that actually leads perfectly into my next question. Obviously, whenever one breaks down your professional resume and actually analyzes it, it makes for very interesting reading because you have an incredibly varied means of winning your fights. And what I mean is that you almost have as many submission wins as you do knockout victories. And there's even quite a few decision wins that are in there as well. Is there any particular method of winning that means the most to you or that you're happier about more than others? And I suppose a sort of second part to that question is obviously because of the disadvantage that you hold with your eye, do decision wins mean more knowing that you're able to tough a fight out whilst being at such a disadvantage?
Mm, I would say, first thing, I like doing submissions. If I can get you out of there, there's just something about a submission, man. It's like you can catch anybody with a knockout. You have a 50-50 chance when it comes to striking. It's who hits the button first and who hits it harder. So striking is kind of like you can write off a knockout. It's like, I got caught, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But a submission is one of those things where you get caught and you're fighting for, in your head, you're fighting for your life. And then next thing you know, you're out, or your arm is broke, or your leg is broke, something like that. There's nothing more satisfying than taking someone out like that. So, like, to me, I would definitely go for submission 10 times out of 10. Um, with my eye and with having all that to deal with, decisions are nice. It really is. And the one decision that hurts me the most is the Jose Johnson fight, because like I solely believe I won that fight. And it's so rewarding to go with somebody 15-minute round, 15 minutes, and then see that person break in the last, that last round. So if I can't sub you, I'm going to like break you, spiritually. Like, man, I can't get this dude out of here. Like, yeah, you're not going to get me out of there. So that's what I like. Either, and I don't want like a decision that's back and forth either. I want like a dominant decision. Like, I want you in there. I want you to regret signing this contract. That's what I want.
There's
So I call
definitely
it 50. Yeah, I call it 15 minutes of hell. So
that's great. And there's definitely something about a 30-27, I have to say, because it really does highlight what you just said about breaking your opponent. And even if you can't finish them, they really wish they weren't in there. So I fully understand what you mean, and that's a great answer. Thank you for that. My next the next question I have is, we've seen quite a lot of fighters, such as, the main example that comes to my head is the notorious Nick Newell. And we've even seen someone like Michael Bisping, who for a very large part of his career fought quite debilitated compared to the elite opponents that he was fighting. Whenever you see opponents like, or whenever you see fighters like that, as well as someone like yourself fighting with those limitations, do you ever consider how much of an inspiration that can be to somebody? And what I mean by that is, obviously there's, mixed martial arts is incredibly inclusive, and we see a lot of fans who suffer, various disabilities and limitations, including eye injuries as well. Do you ever see yourself as being able to give a fan in those stands hope that they can do what you do? Because obviously it's, for very obvious practical reasons, what you do is much more difficult than someone who isn't affected by what you have. Do you ever consider the positive imagery that you present whenever you step in the cage?
Not really. I've never struck myself as an inspirational fighter. It really didn't dawn on me until this past fight, with a lot of eyes being on XMMA. I got so much love from people that I didn't even know of because of the eye thing, because people are like, that is badass that you have an eye. And then, like, I had a parent just message me the other day about her kid who was 9 years old. And, I think he caught something in his eye. I don't want to say it's cancer, but it was something he was born with. And she was like, we almost pulled him out of wrestling, but then he saw your fight in July and was like, very motivated. So it warms the heart, but it's never been one of those things where like, I'm gonna do this for everybody that's just like me. It's never been that. I've always just like, I want to do this because, again, I'm hard headed. I want to be able to tell people I can do it. You said no, but watch me do it anyway. So therefore, you have no choice but to be like, holy crap, that dude is actually doing it. So it's very warming to know that I am inspiring other people, and I hope I do inspire people. But I never set out to be that type of person. Never been like, hey, look at my eye. I don't have an eye. I just recently started coming out and start talking about my eye because usually I didn't want attention to it. But with the jokes that people make, and it's just all the silliness that people make, about the eye. So like, well, I might as well use it, beat people to the punch, and then next thing you know, people are like in shock and all of it. Same thing with Nick Newell. Whenever I watched him, like, he drew attention to his arm. It's hard not to, but you drew attention to it. And that's why I commend Michael Bisping for his, because he never told anybody. Like, you knew when you looked at him, you could tell that eye was fake. It was a prosthesis that he was fighting, especially with the title fight. You knew. I knew just by looking at it. I was like, that's not his eye. And people were like, what are you talking about? I was like, either he's got a really bad lazy eye or that's a prosthesis. Like, and that eye's not moving. And, so he started coming out, start talking about it. I was like, all right, these guys they are a vehicle. They're showing everybody that it can be done. So therefore, other people start getting off the couch, but then I can do it. I can start it that way, and then show people, yeah, you take the same path that I took, but then now I pretty much just kicked the door down. Michael Bisping was in the door. Nick Newell, opened the door. I'm trying to kick that door off the hinges, and then show everybody that don't let nobody tell you no.
Yeah, yours is most definitely, I would say, the most trailblazing path, because, as you just said, you are kicking the door down from being there at the beginning. But I really appreciate your perspective on it, especially because it's obviously something that you have. So thank you for being so honest about that. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our fans will appreciate your willingness to analyze that and talk about that, especially.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's one of those things that it's on my face. I can't hide from it, and it was hard, at the gym I teach kids class. So like it's kind of weird. You used to when I like beginning to teach kids class, kids will stare and they're like, what's like, kids are very observant, they're very honest. But now like the kids now they have gotten so used to it. And if any kid like says anything or like what's going on, like the other kids are like, oh, this is what happened. And they'll say it so like nonchalantly that the other kid is like, oh, and then next thing you know, the kids are joking and they're having fun with me, and it's awesome. It's like it's crazy to think that at one point I was viewed as a monster by kids. Now I'm like just a big old like a big old teddy bear to everybody. So the kids like it. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very hard for them to think anything else because of what you've just said. Next question for you, Dre. My next question here is more about sort of wider goals and sort of goals further down the road. Obviously, we mentioned your last fight where you debuted in XMMA. Do you have any sort of end game with your sort of fight career? Is your end game perhaps Bellator, the UFC? How high are you aiming, and what are your goals for, say, the next part of your career?
I would want to be in UFC or Bellator. Really, it doesn't matter which promotion that I go to. Ultimate goal is like, everybody wants to be champion. I just want a number next to my name. If I can't get the C next to my name, I want a number. And I don't mean like top 15, I want like a top five. That's what I want. Ultimately, I would like to be pound for pound one of like the baddest dudes on the planet. Like that's what I'd want. I get the belt. I get just one time ranking a pound for pound best, and then after that, I can ride in the sunset. Like I already smashed everything. So ultimately, and it's so crazy to think about that because like I'll see all the bantamweights there in the UFC now, and in Bellator. I'm like, man, I could really hang in with some of these guys. And I've rolled with some of those guys, and I have fought a couple UFC guys, you know. So it's really crazy to sit there and think about. Like, at one point, I could be there, and at one point, I could be, running that. I could be running that division, or at least trying to chase after that. So I'm hoping to aim for that at least probably at least 5 years. By 5 years, I'm already there. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that's a very attainable goal, and it would certainly be a great one to see you achieve, unquestionably. Sort of a quick offset off of that, and it's something you briefly mentioned there now. The UFC and Bellator have both got incredibly stacked 135-pound divisions right now. In fact, one could make the argument that those two divisions are the best divisions in those respective organizations right now. In the UFC and in Bellator, are there any particular bantamweights that you would really like to face or that you think stylistically would be an amazing fight for you?
Stylistically, honestly, I look up and down Bellator, and everybody could fit the bill. David Cass is in Cass Bell. I'm sorry, Cass Bell. He's one of them. There's two bantamweights fighting now. The dude that is fighting tonight, he lost to Sweeney too. He's fighting Hornell Lugo. So Keith Lee, I'd love to fight either one of those guys. Danny Sabatella, I would love to fight him. And there's a few others. I've actually won a few wrestling rounds with Hafion Stotts before. He came to Knoxville, I think, when Mershart was fighting for Valor. And me and him got to wrestle with, and I was like, "Good Lord, this dude is huge." And like, we're virtually the same size, but like, he's just stout. So you know, eventually I'd have to run into him. And then UFC, the list is already there. I would like to fight Randy Costa, Adrian Yanez. Who's the last 35 that just fought? I think it's who is it? Rodriguez? No, not Rodriguez. I think his name's Veneta or something like that. He
Lando
just fought.
Venata.
Yeah, I think that's his name. They just fought like this past card. They fought the Sorgon and Derek Lewis fight. But I'd like to fight him. Of course, I'd have to run it back with Cody Durden eventually. Me and Ronnie Lawrence, because Ronnie was leaving as I was coming up through the ranks. So I would love to mix it up with him. Nathan Manis, he was another one that was running up whenever I was there. I mean, there's a giant list. There's a lot of guys out there, and I've told a lot of UFC and Bellator guys like I will be there. So don't think that it's going to be safe because I'm coming. So it's taking a little bit longer than I like it, but I'm still on my way there.
Absolutely, and those would all be amazing fights. It's actually funny you mentioned Raphael Stotts because he was one of the first names that came to my mind. Actually, like if I was to put like a dream fight at the moment for you, Raphael Stotts is an opponent that actually came to my mind as well. So to hear you've already done wrestling rounds with him is it's an amazing coincidence, I suppose, more than
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. One of my old teammates that used to train with us back in. He's like my big brother. Like I talk to him like all the time, and he was he's invited me to come up there and cross train with him. Because him and Hafian trade together, and I was like, man, that would be kind of cool to go up there and hang out with you guys. So it's one of those things that's empty in my head. And then another fight that I would like to take, since he had a good fight against Sean O'Malley. I would love to fight Kris Moutinho. That'd be a really good fight. And of course, you'd fight Sean O'Malley, but like, I'll get there. But I think me and Kris would be a hell of a fight. Like Kris needs a fight that makes him look good, and you need somebody to help sell a fight. Who else better to help sell a fight than somebody that literally has like one eye, has a good story, has a winning record? We have the exact same record, so you can't be like, oh well, maybe not. So no, we have the exact same record. So put me on there, put me in there, let me and him mix it up, and then there you go. You have two UFC stars right there. Because I guarantee it's gonna be fighting tonight.
That's a great shout, actually. It genuinely is. I forgot you do have the same record as Chris Moutinho as well. That genuinely could make sense. So Dre, my last question for you is this is a question I sort of ask everybody, but especially with you and your career, I think this is going to be very, very intriguing. Obviously, I don't think you've probably even hit your peak right now. You're probably a year or so away from hitting your peak years. So we are talking a long way down the line, I would imagine. But one day, whenever your MMA career reaches its natural conclusion, what would you like your sort of legacy to be, and how would you like people to remember Dre Miley?
I would like people to remember me by just not necessarily being a fighter, but being someone who truly believed in the process. Someone that followed the process, that's doing the things. You don't get all the glitz and glamour. You have to keep sticking your nose in the grind, keep working. You got to keep evolving yourself. So that's really what I want. I want people to be inspired. The fact that this guy did not stop. He kept doing what he was supposed to do. He kept digging, kept clawing. He was doing the right things. So I mean, ultimately, that's all I want. That's all I want people to look at me like, you did not stop. So therefore, I don't have a reason to stop. Somebody out there right now is needing that voice. That is not a friend. That's not a family member. That's not a friend. It's just somebody out there that's trying to make something of themselves. So, and also, I have three kids. I have three boys. So, if I quit moving and I stop, and I'm like, man, I'm never gonna get to UFC. Get to Bellator, and let me stop. That's just teaching them that, like, well, damn, dad stopped. So what purpose do I need? Why do I need to keep going if he's gonna stop? So that's all I want people to do is just keep just always going forward. If you fall backwards, you lose, something doesn't happen, something doesn't go your way, just keep pushing forward. It's going to pay off eventually. At least that's what Eric tells me. And Eric's never been wrong. So he's always telling us just keep pushing forward. We're going to get there. You just guys got to keep trusting the process, keep living it. So that's what I'm doing every day. I'm trying to live the process. I'm trying to do the right things at all times. It's hard, but I'm doing it.
I respect that massively, Dre, and I'm sure that will be your legacy. But to have that legacy, no doubt, I think is certainly within your reach. And I would certainly love to see it happen. And I'm sure our audience will definitely be cheering you on all the way towards that over the next number of years too. So those are all the questions that I have. That's everything from my end. Thank you so much for your time more than anything, Dre. This has been an amazing, insightful interview for me. And I really think our audience they've really seen a lot more to you as well than there already was, which of course there was a lot. But I really appreciate this time today, Dre. Thank you so much, my guy.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, man. This is fun. This is a lot different than most interviews where you just talk shop and don't have to ask about like, what are you going to do to this person? What's your next one? So it's like you just talk and then you get to be a person. I'll have to be a character the whole time.
Absolutely. We're contemplative over here. We live the Bushido Code on the MMA island.
There you go. That's what I like. There you go.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for me today. Please do check out Dre Miley on Twitter and Instagram as well. It's an amazing account, and please do follow him throughout his career as well. He always puts on a show, he always brings it, and I'm sure we will see him in the UFC or Bellator very soon. And just to conclude from me, Dre, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. So yeah, follow me on Twitter. Number one, OneEyed Dragon, Dre. That's on Twitter, and on Instagram, Dre Miley MMA 135. I'm on both of those, and I'm very responsive to everybody. So don't be shy. Shout out, talk about it, talk whatever you want to talk about.
You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. Check him out there. Once again, Dre, thank you so much.
All right, man. Thank you.